Okay, so today is going to be the one and only Florence Price episode on the channel. I'm looking at her. Uh, I'm looking at her second piano album. Okay, let's see here. So she has a number of piano pieces she's written. I think there's just two albums of them, but there's also piano sonatas and piano preludes and other things. This album here, I'm not sure if I scanned the whole thing, but the pieces I do have are Southern Sky, Andante. Oh yeah, 1939. No date on the Andante. Breezes, Clouds, Coquette, Down a Southern Lane, Dragonflies, Dreamboat, Song Without Words in brackets pleading, and just Song Without Words. This one's 1932, so there are some of them are dated, some of them are not. That gives me a sense that maybe a few were composed within each year. I'm not sure. This one's called Swinging on a Grapevine, Tree Bows or Boughs, and then Waltz of the Spring Maid, Whirl Away Waltz, and I think that's the last one. And this one was written in 1949, so there's actually a bit of a range. I didn't realize some of them were as late as 1949. I kind of just have these in terms of like on my spreadsheet of scores. This is just firmly in 1939, but it looks like it was composed over the course of the 30s and 40s. All of these pieces, by the way, are like very traditional, like just sort of like romantic sounding. Florence Price has gotten a lot of attention lately for being like a early 20th century uh, woman of color composer, and she has a symphony which I think people are starting to get into, which was not performed a lot in her lifetime, but it's very much inspired by Dvorak's New World Symphony. Also, she's American, so that's a important detail. I'm gonna pull up her bio before I like misspeak or something, and we're gonna talk about her. I think it's important that we get into the history with this episode. So yeah, Florence Price was born in 1887 and died in 1953. So very like we're getting into 19th century born composers here. So yeah, she was a composer, pianist, organist, and music teacher born in Little Rock, Arkansas, and educated at the New England Conservatory. She was active in Chicago from 1927 until her death in 1953. Um, the first African American woman to be recognized as a symphonic composer, which is a really big deal, and the first to have a composition played by a major orchestra. She composed over 300 works, four symphonies, four concertos, as well as choral works, art songs, chamber music, and music for solo instruments. Today, we're focused on her solo piano music. In 2009, a substantial collection of her works were found in her abandoned summer home, drawing a lot of attention to her career, obviously. She attended school at a Catholic convent growing up, um, and enrolled in university studies in 1902 in Boston. Double major in organ and piano pedagogy. She passed as a Mexican, I guess, to avoid racial discrimination, and she listed her hometown as Pueblo, Mexico, while doing that degree. She studied with George Chadwick and Frederick Converse, both teaching composition and counterpoint, I'm not familiar with either of these composers, but they're like late 19th, early 20th century Americans. She wrote her first string trio and symphony there and graduated in 1906 with honors, returning to Arkansas in 1910. Taught music briefly before moving to Atlanta. There she became head of the music department of what is now Clark Atlanta University, a historically black college. In 1912, she married Thomas J. Price, a lawyer. She gave up her teaching position and moved back to Little Rock, and had two daughters with him. She could not find work in Little Rock anymore because by that time it was racially segregated. After a number of incidents, including the lynching of a black man in 1927, the Price family decided to leave Little Rock. Like many black families living in the Deep South, they moved north to escape Jim Crow conditions, and they settled in Chicago, a major industrial city. And that's where her composition career kind of began. So she was part of the Chicago Black Renaissance. Let's have a look at that. This was a creative movement in the Chicago Black Belt on the city's south side, spanning the 1930s and 40s, exactly the time when she was publishing and writing these piano pieces. Um, Movement including famous writers such as Richard Wright, Margaret Walker, Gwendolyn Brooks, Arna Bontemps, Lorraine Hansberry, and then musicians, what we're interested in on this channel, Thomas A. Dorsey, Louis Armstrong, Earl Hines, Mahalia Jackson, etc. And there's also a list of artists here. And yeah, this is sort of like the development of the African American community in Chicago. Sounds like a really interesting time and place to be in. How did she get her career off the ground is what I'm trying to figure out. So, at various times she was enrolled in different colleges, so Chicago Music College, Chicago Teachers College, University of Chicago, American Conservatory of Music. Price got divorced at age 44. This was in 1931. She was having some financial struggles and was dealing with an abusive husband. She became a single mother of her two daughters. And to make ends meet, she worked as an organist for silent film screenings. She eventually moved in with Margaret Bonds, who was also a black pianist and composer. And this friendship connected her to the writer Langston Hughes and contralto Marian Anderson, both prominent figures in the art world, who sort of aided her career as a composer. The real big piece was her Symphony in E minor in 1932. Price won first prize with that piece at the Wanamaker Foundation Awards. Her third piano sonata also earned her a $500 prize. So I guess that's where her career started to take off, was in the 1930s, 1932 onward. And in 1940, she was inducted into ASCAP for her work as a composer. I guess the society was very different back then. Yeah, so it sounds like she really had to work to get that recognition and had to make some tough decisions like that divorce, just to, yeah, just to kind of get her career off the ground. It's pretty remarkable. She seems like a really inspirational figure. Um, Unfortunately, I didn't cover her symphony in E minor during our orchestra series, but I do have a score of her piano works here. Both volumes of her piano works were just freely available at my music library. This was at the University of North Texas. I just grabbed it and scanned it one day, to share with my students. But yeah, I've never really taken the time to just listen to all of these pieces back to back. Yeah, one detail which I didn't notice because of my math skills being so lacking. She died quite young, aged 66. Um, so yeah, it's remarkable what she was able to accomplish, especially because it, her career like got off to such a slow start. Like she was already fully capable of being a professional composer in her undergraduate studies, and then life happened, and she didn't start taking off until her like mid 30s. Um, which honestly, just I think that's inspiring to any composer. Um, with the way that the industry is so focused on like prodigy and youth lately. Thank you for looking at this Wikipedia article with me. I know I'm not particularly researched and prepared, but that's sort of the channel format. It's very off the cuff. So if I missed anything or if anything I said was like off, and like I had a bad source or something, feel free to let me know in the comments. I hope that sharing this piece can inspire a lot of young composers to pursue what they're doing. And yeah, I'll let you know what I think of these pieces. I put a bunch of links to recordings in the video description. I can't find one big recording of this album, but people have recorded her complete piano works, so I can find individual recordings of each piece. Hopefully, you don't have to deal with too many ads. But yeah, I'll see you in, I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Okay, so I'm just stopping at the halfway point here because I have a meeting with someone in 10 minutes, but I will listen to the rest of these. So it's just going to be kind of like a two-parter post-listen thing. Um, yeah, these are really cute pieces, and she has a remarkable way with the piano. I can clearly tell that she can improvise this stuff very flexibly. It all looks very pianistic, and I can see why pianists are getting really into it and getting into her music. Um, one of these pieces, I think it was Clouds, the recording I found was like much longer, so there must be more than one version of it. So that's something to be aware of. There is like a 5 minute version of this little piece, which starts exactly the same. It's just much longer. Like there's a whole other B section or something added. Um, I think the first two are kind of bangers. Like I really like this slow schmaltzy stuff. The Andante and the A Southern Sky is really good. Yeah, that's a good opener for the album. Um, so those two stood out for me so far. The harmonic language is obviously very like it's like impressionistic with some sort of bluesy notes to it. Um, very, very skillfully put together. I don't know how this album came about, but I'm curious because it's like none of these pieces seem to have anything in common. They seem to all be written at different points in the composer's career and just kind of put together. So, and I'm wondering how many of these were discovered in 2009. Like, how many of these just don't have dates simply because we don't know when she wrote them? Um, there's like this sort of interesting archival aspect to the whole thing as well. So, Um, yeah, that's what I'm finding interesting about it so far. This style of music is not really my cup of tea. I'm not the best person to appreciate or judge it, but it's been a pretty enjoyable listen. I'm gonna start like getting into the second half after this meeting, and I'll let you know what I think. It's taking a little bit longer than I expected. I think a lot of these are in the 3 to 4 minute range, so it is not a short listen today. Maybe you'll find something you really like, though. Okay, so my thoughts on the second half of this little piano album. I think the second half is better. I don't know if I have a suspicion these are organized from earliest or supposed earliest to latest. Although a lot of them don't have dates, and they're kind of grouped together. like in pairs. So you get two waltzes at the end, which are both quite good. My favorite from this half is probably let's see. The song, yeah, probably I don't know, it's hard to say. Dreamboat is really good. I think this is one of the more iconic ones. And then you get Two Song Without Words, which are both really good, but a little bit forgettable. And then you get the two nature pieces that are probably the best two nature pieces in the whole volume is the Swinging on a Grapevine, which is infectiously catchy and fun to listen to, and then Tree Boughs, which is also really catchy. And I think I'm starting to notice, like that I may be overthinking like what there is to see in this music. Like the fact is, I think she's just a very gifted melodist, and a lot of these melodies are just really charming. And the topics of the pieces are really cute, and I like how there's a mix of like more programmatic like nature pieces, you could say, and then there's like your standard like imitations of classical genres and um in terms of the stuff we look at on this channel, it's like definitely the most conservative. It sounds very classical, like could very much be something from the 19th century, if not for this little bit of jazziness to it, to the melodies and chord progressions. There's a clear jazz influence, but otherwise it's just like kind of like any sort of classical music. I really like Florence Price's story. I can't remember how. I think I was introduced to her music through a pianist who was doing an online workshop at the same time as me in like 2021, and I'm blanking on his name, but he was really nerding out about Florence Price. And if I was a more capable pianist, I think I would also really enjoy just sight reading these pieces every once in a while. They seem very like charming, and yeah, most importantly, I think it's like it's important to have this sort of representation of like sort of like the Black Renaissance in Chicago in classical repertoire. I think that's really fantastic to have. And if you're an American uh, performer, you should want like performing classical music. You should want repertoire like this that sort of speaks to your country's history and things that are like maybe relevant to current history and current events.